The Fatal 5-Way match in Extreme Rules could very well be the most important match of the new era. Right now, I'm looking at two of the odds-on favorites in that match. But what I want to know is who's going to carry the momentum going into Extreme Rules. I don't want to find out next week. I don't even want to find out later tonight. I like Roman's idea of Roman Reigns versus Bray Wyatt right now.
Hello and welcome to Review of Raw. It's John Pollock, and I'm joined tonight as always by one Wai Ting, who... Did you get a haircut, Wai?
No, I didn't, no.
Oh.
I'm actually wearing a hat.
Oh, I was confused.
Huh. Yeah, this is my hat, not my hair.
Oh. Is that a new shirt at least?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I have bad recall then of your Monday night outfits.
Yes, everybody. We are doing an audio-only version of the show tonight, just like old times.
It's just audio tonight?
Yes. Maybe if you opened your eyes, you'd sense that you're actually not in the studio right now. You're probably in your kitchen.
Oh, because I'm staring at your avatar here, and it just is so lifelike. I thought you were actually here on my computer.
Oh, okay. Maybe someday we'll do like a virtual reality Skype recording, so people can feel like we're
right there with them.
That is the future, isn't it?
Do you think if virtual reality really took over, that there would be, because everyone says that, you know, with the online social media culture, that people are so isolated from one another, that maybe virtual reality could kind of right that wrong, and we could feel more of that society that we have maybe branched away from, that tribal society that we once had.
Yeah, but I mean, it would only be it wouldn't be real. You know?
No, but it's like at Skype, least replicating a real experience.
Well, you can argue that Skype or even texting or ICQ or even anything like that is a way for us to bond together. I mean, you know, certainly like the internet has allowed us to meet people that we would have otherwise never met, but I would still say it's no replacement for human interaction, one-on-one in person.
Yeah, nothing replicates a hug.
Yeah, which I know you love. Have you been hugged since
not once.
WrestleMania weekend?
No, not once. I haven't, well, I guess within my family, I'm sure I've been hugged over the past month. I hope. But, no one on the street has come up to me.
Okay.
Yes. I did want to state right off the top, there was a horrible tragedy today in Manchester, England. So I want to start off just with a mention of that, and that obviously our thoughts are with any of the people affected. It was just this horrific incident at the Manchester Arena that's believed to be a bombing, a terrorist act that went down during a Ariana Grande concert there. It's just horrifying to read about, Wai.
Yeah, it's fucking horrific. Yeah, it's I mean, it affects everybody. It's a story that affects everybody in the world, and I think anybody who's ever been to a concert in their lives can relate, especially, you know, as a youth going to a lot of shows. It's horrific to think about just how young these people are that were affected by something like this, and it's just terrible. And yeah, I just wanted to make a mention off the top because we're just going to do a silly little wrestling podcast, but there are real life events out there that have happened. Today in Canada, it was Victoria Day, so myself and Wai Ting had a holiday. Did you get around to doing much on your long weekend? I spent the holiday in bed, just sleeping.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you were sick or something like that. You just rested.
Yes, that's what I did all day, and then I watched Raw.
Oh, well, that's it. Did you catch any wrestling this weekend?
Yeah, I saw pretty much everything, except for the Best of the Super Juniors. Didn't watch that yet.
I'm very behind on the Best of the Super Juniors. I've watched up through the Ricochet Will Ospreay match, but I'm very, very behind on Best of the Super Juniors. I've more so been cherry picking, but this weekend was some great stuff. I love that TakeOver show. It was tremendous.
It was awesome. It was great, and I think comparing TakeOver to Backlash, it is a fascinating experiment because, you can do that most weeks, but I feel like this week is a better basis of comparison because I would say the arenas were the same first of all, but also I would say the build for this TakeOver wasn't necessarily all that strong. And similar to Backlash, and I would almost say like the talent level was quite similar on both shows, yet one show received a drastically different crowd reaction than the other, and the result felt incredibly different. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on the differences between the two?
Well, I think that there are definitely some inherent struggles that the main roster has when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to especially their portrayal of babyfaces. I think that's something they really struggle with, and you're talking a larger audience that I think there's the argument that it's hard now to be a top babyface, and the go-tos are your Cenas and Reigns, which I don't really feel Cena. I mean, I think he's a pretty solid babyface, to be honest. But then I look at other babyfaces on the roster that I don't see an AJ Styles really struggling all that hard to be a great babyface. And I watch NXT, and I think you definitely go to those shows, and I think it definitely doesn't receive the same kind of maybe critical eye that the main roster shows do. And
it's a far more supportive crowd.
Yeah, it is. But I think that also goes to an overall feeling like I watch NXT and I don't ever leave those shows where I feel insulted. I don't feel as though, well, this story is not going to have any kind of payoff. It will be dropped. And it does feel like two, albeit under the same umbrella, two very different styles of presenting wrestling. And I watch NXT and I watch so many little things on that show that I really enjoyed. And I can't put my finger on what the significant differences are, but there is a gigantic hurdle between one and the other, and why one crowd will treat Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne with, it was a match of the year contender that was treated as such, and you see these 205 Live performers that are struggling to make any kind of a dent on their own show.
How do you think Pete Dunne versus Tyler Bate would have been received had that taken place at the Backlash?
I actually think that very same match at Backlash, I feel that the audience would have reacted pretty closely to it. Now, if they were put on Raw next week and were given 10 minutes to go out there, no, I don't think that they would necessarily be treated as these superstars. I think that they would have to really go above and beyond to get that crowd on their side. But I feel that match was at such a level on Saturday night that I feel they would have had a similar reaction Sunday night.
Yeah, I'm with you. That match was just so good that I don't think any crowd would have shit on it. Conversely, I think the overall opinion of Nakamura Ziggler was that it was somewhat disappointing. How do you think that would have been received at TakeOver?
I think, you see, I thought that Nakamura came out to a pretty solid reaction in Chicago. I think that crowd, they wanted to really love that match. And it just, to me, it never, it was progressing nicely. I thought the first couple, 8 minutes was like, this is building nice, and we're going to have a big peak, 20 minutes, and go through all the false finishes, and this crowd's going to be going ape shit for Nakamura, but we never got to that moment. It's almost like we got just near the second gear, and then boom, it was done. While I feel that at TakeOver, I feel there would have been a lot more heat for Ziggler at TakeOver, and probably a bigger response for Nakamura. I still feel I would have been somewhat let down with that match, and I went into that with high expectations. I thought that was going to be the match of all matches that was going to catapult both into better things on SmackDown, Ziggler included. But what did you feel? Did you agree? The majority seemed to feel it was just an average match. Did you see it differently?
I thought it was for a SmackDown pay-per-view, probably above average, but for a Shinsuke Nakamura match, compared to his body of work over the past several years, I would say definitely underwhelming, especially with the high expectations of him being all over the promotion for this event, and also him it being his first WWE main roster match, certainly. And I'd love to know kind of what some of the reasons for it may be, because I certainly don't think it's due to the talent involved. I think Dolph Ziggler is tremendous. But for whatever reason, I think the booking of the match was probably a bit more limiting for him. And I do feel like crowd support does play a role. I'm not saying that's the reason why the match was underwhelming, but I think that did play a role. And I feel like, you're debuting a guy who much of the people who are attending the show didn't really know. And also you're having him debut against Dolph Ziggler, who for the longest time is really just, a curtain jerker. And you put these two in a curtain jerker position. They had to have a really tremendous match in order to kind of live up to some of those expectations. And I don't think they really did, unfortunately.
Yeah, and just going back to Bate and Dunn, I think another difference is that I don't think they'd be having that match on the main roster. They're not getting that amount of time. They're not, I think, given the leeway that they were at TakeOver, and they're also not going on, in case these two were wrestling on 205 Live, they're not going on after the crowd has just sat through a 2-hour show either. I think the circumstances are very different, and I don't know if that kind of style of match would necessarily be happening on the main roster. It's
absolutely
it's just a very different presentation of how they are portraying their cruiserweights on the main roster.
The only people who are really allowed to have that style of match are like The Undertaker, like the amount of false finishes that occurred in that, and the amount of stunts that took place in that match. I was surprised they were allowed to do it at TakeOver even. And I definitely don't feel like any of those guys could ever have that match on the main roster for many years, until they've really established themselves. So it really is a different show and a different presentation of the product.
I heard today on my holiday Monday, I think I heard from every single wrestling fan that has an opinion on the Hardys situation with Impact Wrestling. I heard from people on both sides. It took up my entire Twitter feed all day long, coming off of this interview we had on Sunday night, which has been very, very heavily discussed way. Mm-hmm. Specifically all the what Ed Nordholm said about the Hardys and his statement, which I will fully admit, I was very surprised when he said this during the interview about the WWE indicating to him that they are not interested in the Broken Hardy characters, which I have a hard time imagining the WWE does not have a desire to have those characters. My conclusion after today is that there needs to be some kind of a mediator here to come into the middle to eliminate a lot of the emotion that is in this story, because a conclusion, I feel, needs to be reached for both sides. On the Hardys' end, they want these characters. They feel they are the creators of it. And to be honest, watching that, I don't think those characters become what they are without Matt and Jeff Hardy. I just don't think you can make that argument. And I give Matt Hardy the lion's share of the creation of those characters. Now, on Anthem's side, these characters that they have the rights to, and again, we don't know what the contracts state, that's what this comes down to. Those characters, the value of those characters without Matt and Jeff Hardy are zero. There is zero worth to those characters. And I feel that there can be a resolution where I don't think Impact wants to continue with this cloud over top of them, which when Ed Nordholm goes out to do interviews, when Jeff Jarrett is going to do interviews, this Hardy situation is going to always come up. And I just don't feel it is worth it for them to continue to, whether they are in the right or not, to continue this public battle with the Hardys. And I just feel that they need to come to some kind of resolution here where, and I hope that if a resolution is made, I do hope for the sake of the Hardys that it's them that gets the rights to these characters and not the WWE, where the Hardys would be in this situation a few years down the road if they ever want to leave. But I definitely want to get your reaction because this has been a big story today.
Yeah, I mean, I actually helped you shoot the interview, and people will actually get to see the video of the full interview with Ed, taken probably when do we say? We'll probably put that up like Tuesday night.
Tuesday
Wednesday.
night, we will put it up. Yes,
yeah,
it's 35 minutes, and I tried to cover as much ground as possible with Impact. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, full disclosure, we work in the same building as Ed, and who is in charge of TNA. And it's kind of been ever since the news came out, it's been sort of a touchy thing, especially for us here. And me personally, I don't even talk about TNA. I don't even watch TNA. So I haven't really had to talk about it too much. But you do, and you, Jay, Dan, you talk about it every single week on the Law. I think you guys have been doing a great job of remaining, the unbiased and, talking about it as if we had no association with it whatsoever. So when this opportunity came up, can you talk a little bit about how like Ed even wanted to speak to you about any of this stuff?
Well, I mean, I had made it pretty clear, a long time ago that I definitely want to speak with anyone at Impact, whether it was Jarrett, whether it was Ed, to talk about the entire transition. I wanted to talk about all the questions I had. So last week, I was notified that Ed was willing to do interviews with different outlets. Did I want to be one of them? I said, yes, I did. And believe me, I definitely thought about it first. And I had, it wasn't any different of any other interview I did. I don't prepare questions ahead of time. I don't have to clear anything. And yeah, it's kind of, I'm not going to say I'm annoyed by it, but that's kind of the position that I feel that I almost have to explain now. That I went into that interview with, as you can see in the video, it's not like I have notes there. It's like I was going to ask whatever I wanted to ask. And so we did the interview and then ran it on Sunday. And then today there was a lot of reaction to it because I think the Hardy side believed that the WWE, see, the situation is that the Hardys currently have their own legal team that is working on this. So the question is what exact involvement the WWE has in all of this. And I will say my assumptions are that 95% the WWE wants to get these characters. There is lots of money to be made. They are a merchandising dream to get these characters.
So why do you think Ed said what he said about the WWE not being interested in his conversations with him? Do you think that that's Ed lying, or do you think that he is being told that from the WWE that they're not interested when in fact they actually are?
I can't say definitively either way. If the WWE were to say that to him, doesn't mean the WWE is not interested. They could very well believe that the Hardys, they have said, hey, you guys take care of this. If you guys can get the rights to those characters, then let's talk and we can work out our own agreement and go from there. If you guys can get the rights to these characters, we're on board to market you. That could very well be the situation. Now, I say 95% in that case because the WWE, let's look at their track record of ideas and characters they have not created. And they have left money on the table in the past because of stubborn issues such as that. I look at ideas like how many times you've heard fans that want to see the War Games, and the WWE, they weren't quite comfortable doing that, even when they got the rights to be able to do that after WCW went out of business. They created their own version of War Games with the Elimination Chamber. When Goldberg came over, I mean, that was as foolproof a character as possible, but they wanted to tweak it. When they signed AJ Styles, Anderson, and Gallows, they didn't aggressively go after the Bullet Club IP from New Japan. They just went their own direction. They kind of created their own thing with the Balor Club. So could I see a situation where the WWE has this, we didn't create it, we're going to come up with our own idea? Yeah, that's possible. I don't rule that out. But I think at the end of the day, you would want some semblance of that idea that you can legally promote, because you can just hear the reactions from the audience. Why wouldn't you want that?
I agree. What I feel like is that I don't know why the WWE just doesn't do what they always do, and that's just make their own tweaks and, turn the Bullet Club into the Balor Club and sell those t-shirts, and turn Broken Matt Hardy to people have been suggesting a fractured Matt Hardy or something like that, and just go about the same thing and do their own thing. But, it feels like the Hardys definitely want ownership of it. And I would say whether or not the WWE is interested, there's still always going to be a battle between the Hardys and probably Anthem over the rights to this thing. But, going back to your interview,
yep.
People will get to hear the whole thing, but, John John's very as I think all of our listeners know, John's incredibly proud of his journalistic integrity. And after the interview, he came to me and said, "Did you feel if that was okay? Did you feel like, I was being too hard, I was being not hard enough?" And I said, I thought you did a great job. I thought you spoke to Ed exactly like you would have spoken to Vince, exactly like you would have spoken to Dixie, exactly like you would have spoken to Dana White. Your job is to just get the word out of the person that you're speaking to, and occasionally to dissect it and to call bullshit, afterwards. And I think you did a great job of that. And I think, a lot of people who probably will listen to the interview will hopefully agree with me. But if not, that's up for discussion as well. So, that's all we're here to do, is just to get the news out.
That's it. That's the goal. I mean, I went into that interview and the subject was, this is going to be a discussion about the state of TNA. Going to talk about the India tour. And it was just that was essentially, we're going in to talk about the state of Impact, formerly, TNA, I guess. And I hope you enjoy the conversation. The whole thing is about 35 minutes. So it's going up, Wai said Tuesday night. We will put that out.
Why don't we put it up after SmackDown? So, whenever SmackDown ends, what is it, 10 o'clock?
Yes.
What would you prefer, before or after SmackDown?
Wai, it's your the discretion of when to best release.
Why don't we throw it up at 7 o'clock? People might want to watch 205 Live and all that shit.
Sure,
so.
Maybe you can get a second screen experience and you can watch both together.
No, we'll put it up at 7.
Okay, 7 o'clock.
7 Eastern, before SmackDown.
7 Eastern, it will be up then on the site. So there you go. That was, it was a fun day. That's all we can say. Yeah. Are you ready to chat about Raw?
Oh yeah.
So Raw took place on Monday night from Grand Rapids, Michigan at the Van Andel Arena. I have nothing to say about the Van Andel Arena. I've never been. I probably never will.
I assume that's named after an actual person.
Van Andel? Or
a company that's named after a person, but is Van Andel? Okay, let's find out.
I almost got it up here. Let's take a look. The Van Andel Arena opened October 8th, 1996.
Okay, J. Van Andel was an American businessman best known as the co-founder of the Amway Corporation. Is that what this is?
He got the Freezer on Fulton. It's also known as.
Okay, well,
what a boring arena that we have just listed.
I mean, but it's nice that there are still arenas out there that are named after actual people.
It's nice. It's a nice break. Bray Wyatt came out to start the show. He told the audience to stand up repeatedly, like this was the 2010 WWE campaign, and said that he is their one true savior. The beast cometh. The beast lives in each and every one of you. He is the leech that society wraps around your neck. The reason children cannot sleep. the voice in the back of your head that tells you to run. Well, Bray is going to rip open the beast's chest and feast on its black heart. The beast will die at his hands.
Yes, so a lot of, again, really the build around this entire main event at Extreme Rules is who gets to fight Brock Lesnar, who gets the trophy of a match against Brock Lesnar, and who is man enough to have that trophy, have that power, that responsibility of fighting the Beast.
Yes. Did you see that that Goldberg Lesnar, I don't know what it's called, the Super Cyan edit of their Survivor Series match?
No, I did not. No.
Oh.
No. I can imagine what it's like though. There have been a few of those.
I was dying to ask you for further context.
Super Cyan?
Yes.
It's like a really yellow color, right?
No, this was all blue.
I know.
Are you making fun of me? Are you and your
no. Or
Dragon Ball people all mocking me right now? No. I can't even tell when I'm being made fun of here with this stuff.
No, it's not a Dragon Ball thing.
Bray alone can protect us. He asks if Rollins can protect you. There were mild cheers at the protection abilities of one Seth Rollins. Okay, he talked a lot about the Beast here. He ran through all the different guys, finally mentioning Roman Reigns, and says that one silly yard means nothing to the man that owns the world, and then Roman interrupted to go command his yard. Bray told Reigns that he's the only one who can beat Brock, and Reigns says he'll beat the other four at Extreme Rules, and then he's going to beat Lesnar. So Kurt comes out. He says that the main event at Extreme Rules could be the most important of the new era, and he needs to find out who will carry the momentum into Extreme Rules, and he wants to know the answer to that question right now. So it's Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt in a battle for momentum.
A momentum match.
Yes.
How do you, I guess it's one of those things you just feel. It's not a physical, tangible thing.
Yeah, this should be a video game where coins come from the roof when the guy wins. And he's got powers going into Extreme Rules.
I'll tell you, with the amount of time they have to build to this match, and I guess the creativity and some of the booking leading up to it, I don't think that's such a bad idea, even though I do. Yes. Yeah, and Kurt's role on this show.
Oh, dude, Kurt was just.
Kurt, I actually enjoy him as a performer. I think he's a good try. A GM who doesn't take too much shine away. But the way they wrote him, he was essentially a Teddy Long cliche this entire show.
Yeah, this was not a stellar lazy. Kurt night. On SmackDown Tuesday night, Jinder Mahal is going to have a Punjabi celebration for his WWE title win in the Punjabi hotbed of Toledo, Ohio.
They didn't say that, did they? Punjabi hotbed.
What did you think of this big title win, Way?
I mean, I loved it, actually, in hindsight. I just love chaos, I get excited when, something that is not supposed to happen, happens. And, I know a lot of the reasoning is obviously a bit business-minded for something like this, but beyond that, I get excited when somebody, makes a booking decision that is not supposed to happen. Whether or not, some of those booking decisions end up being great for business long term, that's, I guess, questionable. But for the moment, when he won, I'm sure like everybody, my eyes lit up and, I can't believe they actually went through with it. It was my reaction. So at this moment, that is still my reaction. And I hope they take advantage of some of those reaction videos that have been posted online. They should show some of that stuff just to show how big of a deal and, how surprising a move it was. Especially some of the ones from, I haven't seen any particular, reaction videos from India, but I did watch the call from the Indian broadcasters, during the Jinder Mahal win. I don't know if you've seen that video.
I haven't seen it, no.
Dude, it's so good. They're celebrating. They're saying India #1. They're just they're both marking out huge. It's great. And I hope WWE gives us that full perspective of how big of a deal this was to Indians up there.
What about Canadians?
Yeah, that too. Absolutely. Huge Indian population here. Punjabi Sikh population here in Canada. I mean, you're saying that, of course, because Mahal's Canadian.
He
right?
was born in Canada.
Yes, absolutely. Same with the Singh brothers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
But I mean,
it's the New Heart Foundation.
Right. But their characters aren't Canadian.
No. So anyway, Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt what I was going to say was with the reaction shots, they actually on WWE.com after the Ciampa turn on Gargano, they did a gallery full of reaction shots.
Awesome.
Pretty great. Yeah.
Great.
So
some of the reaction directing was on point at Backlash. To see some of those guys, like, and that little child. Kids are always great, but I mean, the adults were just as stunned as the kids at Backlash.
So Bray and Roman Reigns, Cole reminded us of their legendary feud of 2014. Bray got booted to the floor, returned, hit a Uranagi. Both men were down when Samoa Joe came out to his music. He just entered the ring, and he applied a coquina clutch to Roman Reigns, and the DQ was called in 4:39. Bray then attacked, and Joe then applied a coquina clutch to Bray Wyatt, so momentum was left up in the air. Seth came out to a big pop, sent Joe to the floor, and then Reigns delivered a Superman punch to Bray, is standing tall with Rollins, and then the Extreme Rules theme song just starts playing as these two stand together to some new rock.
The song played, and I was like, who's coming out? I couldn't tell. They played the theme song, which I guess is kind of unusual. Usually they play the theme song with somebody who's standing tall in the ring, but I guess with Rollins and Reigns standing tall, music guy didn't know who to choose and just chose to choose the backup music, the default music, and that was the Extreme Rules theme. I mean, they had an average match for about 3 minutes before Joe walked in. Anything else to say about this?
No, this was, I think everyone knew where this was going given how short it was and how we're really low on main event talent that you're not going to blow through two of them in a 5-minute match. So Reigns and Rollins are backstage. Reigns says that he didn't need his help. Rollins says, well, I came out to go after Joe. So Teddy Angle walks in and said that they aren't done tonight, and it's about teamwork tonight. It's about teamwork.
What if they had a ladder match with momentum hanging above the ladder?
Oh man, like just a big bubble.
Can you contain momentum in a bubble?
Possible. You're trying to keep it harnessed.
What's the symbol for momentum?
An M. Just a letter.
Like in science class when they taught us about momentum. Oh fuck, I forgot what they use. Oh man. Okay, let us know how you would symbolize momentum in a ladder match. Momentum on a pole.
Maybe that's what Impact should rebrand their X Division title.
The Momentum title?
The Momentum title.
Okay.
And once you win the title, all of your moves, the guys sell more and more. And you win that much easier. And it becomes impossible to beat a guy unless you're really special. Like Asuka should be the Momentum champion in NXT.
I mean, this sounds like it's a great DDT concept that I'm sure Kota Ibushi would be all about.
Imagine this person just wins off like a punch.
Yeah.
You can't lose.
It's kind of hard to visually show momentum though, you know?
Oh, you just have people sell. It's all in the selling.
You're right. This is like kind of next level stuff though. I mean, you know, maybe in 2040, see a momentum match.
Well, I don't know if this one was it. He announced Reigns and Rollins against Bray and Joe, and then Kurt said with a straight face, I can't wait to see who gets along the best. That was your hook for 3 hours to answer that question. I can't wait to see who gets along the best.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I wonder if that was scripted for him or if that was an ad lib. Because
dude, Kurt feels painfully scripted in this role. Painfully.
Yeah.
The Drifter wanders in playing his guitar. Angle says, "You've got my attention," and he books him in his first match tonight against Dean Ambrose. Mm-hmm. But first, we had Arya Daivari against Akira Tozawa. The match started with a camera on Kendrick backstage. The match actually began in the background, and Kendrick stating he's the student, Tozawa is the teacher. There was a PK and a senton by Tozawa.
Sorry, did he say that or the reverse?
I thought he said that he himself is the teacher.
Yeah.
And Tozawa is the student.
Yeah, you said the reverse.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Very important. Very. I want every detail of this feud lined up.
You just messed up my momentum. Tozawa hit him with a senton, then got caught with a Davari high knee. Tozawa suplexed him, climbed to the top, hit a senton. This cruiserweight war went 2 minutes and 7 seconds, and then Kendrick said he was impressed and plugged their street fight for Tuesday night on 205 Live.
I thought Tozawa looked good in the match. So tomorrow, with the way they've been building it, I think we can safely assume that this will finally be the blow-off to this feud that has gone on for maybe 2 months too long. Hopefully, we'll see Tozawa beat Kendrick and then move into a storyline that's a bit more interesting, because I think of all the 205ers, he seems like somebody who still has a lot of potential, and they haven't exhausted the title match yet with him. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
It's always the end of the road when you've got a Toledo street fight ahead of you.
Like, what would that entail? Like Gumby?
Hey, as little as I know about the Van Andel Arena, I know less about the arena of choice when running Toledo.
Yeah, I don't know what.
That'll be our research for tomorrow's show. Charlie then spoke with Sasha Banks. She's got her rubber match with Alicia Fox tonight. She calls this her get out of jail free card because if she wins tonight, she can move on from Alicia and Noam Dar, who she classifies as crazy. They walked in, they made fun of Sasha, and then Dar went to insult her, but before he could, Sasha intimidated him, and that ended this segment. Elias Sampson was in the middle of the ring with his guitar and played with the lights down. This actually got a lot of heat.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah, you know what? He's in there playing his song, looking introspective, and the guy got booed, vociferously. So, I guess all that build-up worked out.
Is he really, really awful at playing the guitar?
No, he's fine. Yeah, he's totally fine. I mean, he only has to play 2-3 chords. So he's had 2 years of learning those 2 to 3 chords, and he's fine. He's a terrible singer, though.
I think that's what kind of makes it when he starts singing.
Yeah.
And builds to it.
Does he make custom lyrics for every town he's in?
He would always, customize the songs. It's not he's not a one-hit wonder.
Oh, cool.
Graves says he needs a mute button, so they're continuing with the Graves, healing on Sampson, which it's kind of weird because you do have the two heels, but I do enjoy it. I think Corey is great playing off of this guy. So Dean and Elias had a non-title match. Dean and Elias in the Battle of the Jeans with The Miz and Maurice on commentary. Sampson was in control for a long time, hit a running knee to Ambrose, who was draped on the apron, applied a Fujiwara armbar, and Booker explains that Dean is too busy defending his title to scout someone like Elias Sampson, and Miz disagrees, saying he's not that busy. Ambrose is lazy and complacent. Ambrose fought back, he hit a lunatic lariat, both were down, as Miz ran down, attacked Sampson instead of Dean, because a wrestler that is feuding with another wrestler has finally figured out how these matches work, that you can attack the opponent so the guy you really want to fuck loses the match, instead of just having a burst of anger and attacking your feuding opponent and then giving them a victory. This really exposed these rules. I think at the ABC convention this summer that they need to recommend some changes for these DQs, because this is just a joke way.
I mean, yes and no. If we're talking in storyline, I feel like if you're The Miz, you're trying to choose between wanting to put a loss on your opponent's record or to actually do some physical damage to him. And it's debatable which one will give you more momentum in your feud with your opponent. But in this case, it was The Miz wanting to make a point about that DQ stipulation.
Well, that's fine logic if you had a show where wins and losses are of the utmost importance, and this ends up leading to something significant. I mean, out of this, at most, we can say Elias Samson, what, does he get a title match now out of this?
I don't think so. I don't think they book title shots for guys who win off of DQs.
I mean,
they can, I guess. I guess they can, but they won't.
Ambrose then chases after The Miz, grabs him, but then Samson attacks Dean from behind and hits his swinging neck breaker onto Dean. So even though this is a bad night for Jeans Ambrose here. Loses the match and then gets laid out by Elias.
What do you think is the ceiling for Elias Samson on Raw?
Ooh, it's way after SmackDown on Sunday night. Sky's the limit for this guy.
World champion.
Yeah.
He can really cater to that, guitar playing demographic.
Brian Alvarez had one of the best tweets I've seen in a long time today. He wrote, I'm paraphrasing here, that they're going to put the Raw title on Elias Samson, or they're going to put the Raw title on the Drifter to go after that audience that's drifted away from Raw. It was much better tweeted than it was paraphrased by myself.
I'll bet. Yeah.
It was a good one. Who knows? Jinder and Elias. Maybe that's our big build for the next year. Cass was backstage, and a referee was bringing him to a dead Enzo. He was laid out cold here, and I'm wondering, was this like the anniversary of the time Enzo was legit knocked out cold on a pay-per-view?
Was it? I don't know. What was that
It was his first pay-per-view. It was probably I think it was Payback last year where he knocked himself out on the bottom rope. But anyway, this is what this reminded me of, seeing Enzo out cold here.
He's had to play dead a number of times.
Well,
remember the Lana Rusev thing, the hotel?
That's true. He plays dead well.
He does.
This was added by the visual of his shoe up next to his face. He had been beaten so badly, his shoe flew up to where his head is positioned.
Well, that can happen. Yeah. So we have a classic whodunit.
We do. Who shot EA?
Yes. Now,
Enzo.
So
I was just going to go after the break. He was now conscious, and Kurt was there, and he was jumped by a mystery man. And Kurt says, "Don't worry, Enzo. We will get to the bottom of it." And Cass says, "You better hope you find out who did this before I did." And that was the end of Cass and Enzo tonight. And the mystery is who took out Enzo.
Yeah.
They listened to me last week. I said I wanted some long-term stories, just like I get on Riverdale. And this is the beginning of that.
I guess.
This is who killed Jason Blossom in PG WWE form.
Well, who are our prime suspects at this very moment?
Well, we'd get it in a later segment. I guess Apollo is one of the suspects.
Can it be Cass?
Oh, wow.
Oh, I just blew your mind.
But we need a motive.
And the motive is that this guy is getting him into trouble all the time, helping him lose. He's holding him back.
I want something deeper. That wouldn't be enough to justify on Riverdale. That's going to be my new litmus test for cohesive, suspenseful drama. Finn Balor came out. He said the Balor Club is in the building. At Extreme Rules, we have a fatal 5-way match. And Balor says that he's focused, and then he's interrupted. Apparently he wasn't that focused, and was interrupted by Paul Heyman, who came out, cut a very lengthy promo about the victims that are participating in Extreme Rules. My highlight being him mocking Seth Rollins by stating, at Fatal Freakin' 5-Way, at Extreme Freakin' Rules, Brock freaking Lesnar will make Seth a freaking victim.
I think he was more making fun of the marketing department and the t-shirt department than
somewhat. Yes,
making fun of Seth
Rollins. An
Rollins.
awful nickname. Seth gets the worst of the bunch. The Kingslayer, Seth freaking Rollins.
I can't imagine Seth Rollins himself is all that thrilled about having to push the whole freaking thing, you know. But I mean, then again, I understand they have they're a PG product and they want to sell shirts to kids. Yes,
Maybe that was the original intent for Paul Heyman with the ECW shirts.
EC freaking W.
Oh God.
Oh God, that's great. Anyway.
He runs down Joe. He mentions Reigns as the one that laid down the dead man. Crowd booed that. But then he praises Balor. Says all the other guys in the match think that he's the underdog, but Heyman doesn't. So he's trying to use some reverse psychology here. And says that he hopes that it turns out to be Lesnar and Balor, and that Balor is the most talented performer in the WWE today. Praise the virtues of Finn Balor.
And the audience applauded. This probably did more for Balor than a lot of things that have taken place on the main roster so far. That line alone was really helpful for him.
Is that your preference of the five that are in this match? What is the match you would want to see most?
Well, he's definitely getting the most focus right now. He's the only guy that was singled out here. You can argue Reigns, but they're not going to do Reigns Lesnar. So I think he's my preference. I sense that he's the crowd's preference too.
I was disappointed in this promo only because I was really hoping this would be the first time Paul would have to say "great balls of fire," and we did not get that in this promo.
Wait 4 weeks. 4 to 5 weeks. I was disappointed by Paul in general here. I thought he just took up too much time. And I know he's great, and I know he has a great delivery, and I'm sure if I read his words on a transcript, I would think that they were brilliant. But I felt like I'm starting to tune out when he appears, because I just know I'm in for a long, drawn-out 5-minute soliloquy of him talking to himself. And I just felt like he took up too much time. He was too long-winded. I just wanted to see some interaction and some action at this point. Well, especially when I already saw Bray do the same not even an hour ago. So, his line about Balor I think was tremendous, but I feel like he could have accomplished that in half the time.
I did mind him as much. I thought it's been a long time since he's been on the show. Not one of his stellar promos, but when you have weeks and weeks until great balls of fire, you gotta limit your material for the money weeks.
Do you have an assessment of Finn Balor, his speaking so far?
It's not really working for me.
So here's the thing, that documentary was tremendous, and he comes across great whenever he just talks in front of a camera, like interview style. But he just comes across painfully, like he's reading a memorized script every single time. And you saw the mistake today, largely as a result of a man not being all that used to reading and memorizing lines throughout his career, I bet. So, it's a challenge for him to work in this style, and I almost feel like they should do the same that they did for Baron Corbin on SmackDown, and that's present him in settings where he doesn't have to. Actually, what I'm saying, Corbin is the worst when it comes to that. Who am I thinking of? Like Brock, some other guys that they've only presented in more of an interview sit-down style, where they're able to naturally speak better. I'd love to see Finn Balor on something like a Talking Smack, where I'm sure he'd be able to, represent himself a bit better.
Yeah, and I don't want to be that person, but those criticisms of Finn Balor never existed during that entire run on NXT. His speaking was very limited, and when it was, I would be pretty safe in assuming that it was at most bullet points. It was those great features they did on him, and they did not send him out to do promos like this. It becomes, it's something. Seth Rollins, I think he's a very good speaker, but he was someone that really struggles with this scripted material, and I feel like it's a broken record when we talk about it, but when it is obvious, it's a real detriment to the guy. And that was the case for me here, of him navigating this. And I'd say the same for Kurt. Kurt's a great talker, but on this show, this felt like a guy that was just trying to remember all of his lines. And near the end, he stumbled trying to remember the exact verbiage that he was supposed to be delivering. So Finn and Carl Anderson had a match together. Anderson applied this rear choke, used a backbreaker. Balor eventually got out, landed an overhead kick, and then a jumping enziguri to Anderson off the top, sent him to the floor, nails Anderson on the floor, and follows with a kick off the apron. Then Anderson gets out of the way from a coup de grace, hits a spine buster. Balor makes his comeback, hit a tope con hero to both Anderson and Gallows, came back into the ring, sling blade, running dropkick, and coup de grace onto Anderson for the win in 6:21. A good television match.
I thought so too. Yeah, obviously guys, both guys being very good friends, have very good chemistry. I think they're,
don't worry, they FaceTimed after and all was good after this.
Well, yeah, I mean, here's the thing is coming off of that 24 special where you saw these two being best buddies, FaceTiming each other, I felt like, I know that wasn't storyline. That one was reality. This is storyline, and storyline, they hate each other, sure. I just feel like it needed a little bit prior to this match to build some heat between the two. Because I feel like that 24 special is so fresh on everybody's minds that we, as an audience, can't really buy into these two actually hating each other when we know that they're such good friends. Why do you think that they don't call his move the Pele kick, but they'll call AJ's the Pele?
I think for that reason. I think they want just different names, even though they're doing very similar
same move.
Spots.
Okay, what about the sling blade? How come he and Rollins get to have the sling blade?
Maybe they haven't come up with a name yet for one over the other. I mean, it's rare that you have two guys that are doing similar. I mean, it's not the exact same execution of the move. I mean, Styles is much more of a backwards rotation, like almost
a backflip.
It is like a soccer kick, whereas I don't know.
This one, this is the same move, same enough.
No. I mean, I'm just saying it's executed a little different. If you notice now, like AJ and Ty Dillinger has now altered his tiebreaker so that it doesn't look like a Ushigoroshi.
Mm-hmm. It's also easier for Ty, I think, as a relatively smaller guy to get a lot of his opponents into the new tiebreaker than it is the old one, I feel.
Yeah, but apparently
it's just, to me, it's just one of those things that's just like unnecessarily changed for the sake of changing. In fact, I look forward to a battle of the sling blades between Rollins and Balor because both of them do the same move. I look forward to a battle of the Pele's, but, especially with two guys that are on different brands. So I feel like having the same move builds those natural rivalries that these guys are missing out on because they want to change the names for whatever reason.
Yeah, and them being on separate shows, it kind of emphasizes that. I think there was a week where someone called Corey Graves on it saying, why don't you call it the Pele kick? And he replied stating that Finn, I think he said that Finn told him not to call it the Pele kick. So that might be all it comes down to.
Interesting.
Graves then plugged the new WWE emojis, and to go against Wai's theory of a breakup, there is a special Enzo and Cass emoji pack available.
What, like a special, like one you have to pay for?
I don't know if you have to pay for it or not.
I assume,
but I imagine it's an emoji with the two of them together, which I don't know what that emoji would be emoting.
So I have to buy that extra just for those two. And you know what? You know where you can get it?
Where?
The iOS App Store.
Oh boy.
That's what he said. The iOS App Store.
The iOS? Who said that? Cole?
Graves.
Oh, Graves. The iOS store.
Seriously, speaking of people reading, I mean, if you're reading this off a script, I could see why you would pronounce iOS. The iOS App Store.
Yeah, maybe they had it was a capital I with a small O and S.
Yes.
With a hyphen in there or something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, poor Corey. Poor us next. It was Alicia Fox and Sasha Banks again. Banks hit a baseball slide drop kick and then was distracted by Dar, so Fox landed this incredible big boot. Her flexibility is insane.
Yes, she's got very long legs.
She got her foot up so high. It looked to be 5 feet in the air. And she made a 90-degree angle with her foot to her leg.
Her flexibility is very impressive, yes.
Cole said that Fox has the best scissors kick in history with Booker T next to him. Banks then awkwardly sent her into the corner and then just hit the double knees and pinned her in 2:14. Then Banks and Dar started arguing. Sasha slapped him hard and then Alicia jumped her from behind and hit her industry-wide appreciated scissors kick. So I don't know if the rubber match means the end. I think this being the playoff season, we might be having an impromptu best-of-7 way.
I think so too. And I wonder if that was really the intent at the beginning of this whole thing, if it weren't for that botched finish with Sasha and Alicia. No, seriously, that match.
Alicia went into business for herself to get a program.
Well, jeez, I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but you know, your conspiracy theory hat could think that way. But I mean, clearly that match was only supposed to be Sasha clean win, and then because of that botched finish, it's resulted into an actual program between the two. So that's interesting. I think it really lowers Sasha's stock, unfortunately, being in a long program with Alicia Fox, but there aren't exactly too many other people in the roster for her to feud with right now.
Do you think this is leading to a scissors match at Extreme Rules?
Like with physical scissors?
Yes.
No.
I don't know if Arn Anderson would be a fan of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I do like Noam Dar in this role, though. Like kind of in the
he's James Ellsworth.
Exactly, on Raw. I find Dar very entertaining, and you don't get intergender matches anymore, but in another time I could see them even trying to position a Sasha versus Noam Dar match.
Backstage, Kalisto is lecturing Apollo Crews. This was quite the segment. And says that you're fighting Titus's battles and accuses him of attacking Enzo tonight. Crews is offended by the mere thought of this blatant and faceless accusation. Crews says that Titus offered him something no one else has, and Titus is known worldwide. Titus walks in and he thinks that Kalisto wants to be the first international client, and Kalisto does not want to be part of the Titus brand. So Titus says that Crews will teach him a lesson tonight.
We're finally starting to understand a little bit about what this whole Titus brand thing is. I mean, Titus has introduced the gimmick, several months ago, but really with no real hint about what the thing is. Like, he was doing those press conferences. He was trying to get involved with Darren Young at one point, but I don't think it's until now where we really understand what the Titus brand is. And here Apollo Crews explains the Titus brand is essentially, he wants to start some type of agency is the way I take it. He wants to manage and help Apollo Crews get popular. And Apollo Crews has to now decide between, I guess keeping his integrity or going with this guy who's got so many connections to various people around the world and, quote unquote, selling out. So, I think for the first time in a while, Titus and Apollo, by association are, I would say, getting a bit more depth in terms of the storyline.
They recap the Goldust turn on R-Truth, and we got a Shattered Dreams production with Goldust going way back to the old style of the character, stating gold never withers and never rusts. And then, I almost felt this had to be an inside joke. He's handed a script and says he doesn't need one, and says he's back in the director's chair and he controls how his next film will end. The golden age is back. I like this.
I like it too, especially as somebody who grew up watching, this original version of Goldust. I felt a little nostalgic here, and I loved it. I think a 90s Goldust absolutely fits in with that whole Bray Wyatt, Demon, Finn Balor, Broken Matt Hardy, supernatural world that Raw can really execute now using the amount of talent they have on their roster. Like, they can make a supernatural division of just guys having these crazy, weird, over-the-top gimmicks. And, they actually have a number of characters that fit that mold now.
It's like, what is the negative on Dustin Runnels? Like, this, at most, you can go, is his age, which this is an ageless character because of the paint. It's like tremendous promo, very strong in ring for a guy that no one would guess is 48.
And I'm sure that's why he's getting the chance right now, because he is very good. And I think they still see a lot of stock in that Goldust character. The negatives, though, I mean, it's not simply just the character, though. The guy is just in incredible shape for his age. And, I mean, seriously, like, you look at him now, I feel like he's in better shape than he was in the late 90s. And probably his...
Go look back at his Black Rain run where he looked awful in TNA.
So,
good for him. Like, listen, I think this guy's been wasted since the Cody breakup. I mean, there's a lot that could be done with this guy. Dude, I'm glad they're finally doing it.
You've seen what they could do with Jinder Mahal in a month. And there's a lot of criticism, of course, but I feel like there's just as many people who are into this Jinder World Championship run that buy him as a legitimate champion. If you wanted to, you could make Goldust World Champion in a month, or at least have him positioned in a main event title program if you wanted. And I think physically, at least he's capable. I'm not saying he's going to, but he's certainly capable of it, I would say.
So then Charlie was with Alexa Bliss. They recapped the kendo stick attack from last week and showed photos of Bayley's back with marks on it from the kendo stick, the one kendo stick shot. Bliss doesn't feel bad for her, wants to do it again, and is going to tattoo her with welts at Extreme Rules. And Bayley is not capable of being extreme. He's going to take her dreams and turn them into nightmares.
Yep, I thought good promo from Alexa, good delivery. We complain about some of these guys being unable to read and memorize scripts, but I think Alexa is one of those who can do a relatively decent job of memorizing and repeating lines.
Kalisto versus Apollo Crews. They noted Titus got a standing ovation for his TED Talk over the weekend at UCLA. There's a front chancery by Crews, then Crews lifts him into a roll-up by Kalisto for a 2 count as Titus is yelling for Apollo to stick him. And he gets distracted by this and gets caught with the Salida del Sol, and Kalisto wins in 2:41.
Do you think they'd ever do a TED Talk character? Like, I guess it would be sort of a motivational speaker character. But, which they've kind of already attempted, but.
Maybe those will be the next series of vignettes for Titus. Titus Talks.
Oh, Titus Talks. I like it. Yeah.
Matt Hardy versus Sheamus. The winner gets to pick the stipulation for Extreme Rules. The Hardys came out in their new green t-shirts. Matt went for the twist of fate. Sheamus went to the floor to avoid it. The crowd starts chanting Brother Nero, and then Sheamus is beating Matt on the chest, knocks him off the apron, and then misses Matt running shoulder first into the corner, and then starts running Sheamus into each turnbuckle as the crowd chanted delete. Sheamus then came back with a rolling fireman's carry, went through a break. There was a flying knee delivered to Matt. Then he grabbed the rope, breaking up the pinfall. He rolled to the floor, avoiding a brogue kick. Jeff leaped off the apron, taking out Cesaro, and then Sheamus booted Jeff, but then Matt caught him with the twist of fate, and Matt Hardy pins Sheamus as Cesaro and Sheamus now have an 0-4 record in singles competition against the tag champions on Raw.
They've also lost the tag match.
They also lost the tag match, but 0-4 in singles matches.
Yeah, yep, that is.
But they're your number one contenders, folks.
Yeah.
Because once you've been shut out, what's the best thing to do? You have the cage match to blow it off. It just can't be contained in the ring, even though it's happened every single week.
But by all indications, though, as a result of all their losses, you would assume that they would win the titles at the show, right?
Yes. There's no justification for this cage match. It's not as though Sheamus and Cesaro have just been interfering or that there's been any reason that they need to be locked in this cage. It's just, it's Extreme Rules. We need to have something.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of the problem with, I would say, the Extreme Rules pay-per-view in general, the fact that you have to have a stipulation for everyone. The cage match, it's a stip that I think always gets a good reaction, will make the match seem a bit more interesting. And that's really all the reason that they have for it. It's just, we want an interesting match. And I guess realistically, as a result of the storyline and the build so far, what kind of stipulation would have made more sense than a cage match? I would say exactly what I was going to say. This should be one Hardy versus both of them because they've just been destroying them, massacring them.
Yeah, it's I guess maybe this leads to a swanton off the cage.
It's kind of the expectation, isn't it?
kind of a waste of that spot for this feud, I gotta be honest. Like, when you look at all the stipulations and the stories behind them for Extreme Rules, the only one I feel has a good story that I'm into is this Alexa Bliss Bayley one, where Bayley just can't get extreme, and they're going to build up to that spot of Bayley finally using a weapon, and it's going to get an awesome reaction.
I like the main event too, but they just have a bit too much time, I think, to build to it. But yeah. As far as like one of the gimmick matches, I think
yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
The matches that have a specific stipulation attached to it. I think like that women's match is the only one where I feel like the stipulation is just a progression of the story, and there's a storyline reason for the match.
Mm-hmm.
And that's with a 1-2 week build now. So yeah, Matt announced a cage match. Tony Nese took on Austin Aries. Neville was in the corner of Nese. They announced that it will be a submissions match between these two. In fairness, these two have a story behind the submission too, with Aries' knee injury. So yes. I do take that back.
Yes.
There's a reason for this one. And I like the way they're building this with the Aries knee injury, which Nese worked on here. Aries then locked on a guillotine, and Nese tried to drop him, but in doing so, Aries then flipped forward into a last chancery and submitted Nese at 427. The right finish, the right submission to push this submissions match for Extreme Rules.
It was really interesting here. At one point, there were some CM Punk chants, and the crowd started to boo itself, and they stopped. Like they were.
Well, they did this at Takeover.
Yeah,
they shut down those Punk chants.
Yeah, so there's still obviously a certain section of the audience that wants to get this started, but there's also another section that's just like, enough, guys, enough. He's not coming back. Let's just focus on this match. And it's nice to see that self-restraint amongst the herd.
Yeah. Is there like a subreddit where they go over all the rules of what fans are allowed to do and what they're not? Because it is becoming a little too authoritarian, I feel, amongst the what chants are allowed and what are not.
I would just say like Twitter itself and the internet itself, I think is, and maybe even like podcasts like ours are where we're discussing what chants are occurring and how annoying they may be. I'll say for this one, probably Aries' tweet last week really contributed to this. The tweet.
I want to see a whole rule book put together.
Yeah.
If you tweet something derogatory at our audience, you will be subjected to X, Y, and Z.
Right.
If you're good to your fans, we will have your back.
Well, no, Aries' tweet last week was criticizing the crowd for.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right, and I think the crowd this week chose to respect Aries' tweet and decide to give him the attention that, they think that he deserved.
Oh, I thought you were saying like the Punk chants were in response to Aries.
No, I would say the shutting down was in response to Aries.
Ah, I see. Well, afterwards, Neville attacked Nese, supplied the Rings of Saturn. Aries just watched on the ramp saying, yeah, you're not going to do that to me. So, poor Nese.
I loved his guillotine transition into a last chancery.
Yeah, it was good.
Lovely transition. I think Aries is just so creative, so smooth. And I think it's really underappreciated, in the WWE mainstream, roster. There's just like simply not that emphasis put on creative transitions in wrestling and just creative wrestling in general. So I really look forward to the submission match. I hope, he and Neville have a lot of nice tricks and nice sequences planned.
Yeah, and I feel that this could be the title change.
I think so. How many times can Aries fail, I guess, but then you can go to a rematch, I suppose, after and really solidify Aries.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, who else is there? Tozawa, who else?
Yeah, I mean,
Tozawa's a babyface too, so,
If Tozawa wins a street fight, he could be the next one for Neville, but yeah, I don't know if you want to necessarily go that route, keeping it with Neville.
Is it time to call up more people? Is it 205 Live?
I think it's time to get some people over. Like, I don't think it's so much the numbers, it's just, what have you done with the guys that you have on the show? Like, with Arya Daivari and with, Grand Metalik has certainly not really done much. They have guys. It's, Cedric's coming back this week.
But again, like let's say you put the belt on Aries, who do you have Aries face? There's Neville, there's TJP on the heel side, but who else? Daivari?
Could be TJP.
Gulak? Nobody.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's a fun look at the future. Alexa Bliss and Mickie James had a non-title match. They did a series of standing switches, then went into the ropes. Bliss stomped on her in the corner and yelled, "That's why I'm the champ." Very Kevin Owens-ish. And Bliss, from there, received all these cross faces from Mickie. Then there was a running boot to Bliss, who was seated. And then James comes out of the corner, gets blasted with a right hand, and a DDT by Bliss, who wins in 3 minutes. Much better than their TV match they had on SmackDown. I think it was right before WrestleMania, which I remember being a mess.
Yeah, I remember that too. I feel like Mickie, unfortunately, seems a little ill-positioned as a babyface on Raw. I think if she was a heel, I would much rather see her in that feud with Sasha than this month than Alicia Fox. Like Sasha, Mickie.
How good's her scissors kick, though?
Pretty damn good. Good Northern Lights, too.
Well, this was just a quick match, but as I said, better than before. And then afterwards, Bliss grabbed a kendo stick under the ring, hit Mickie once, and then Bayley ran down, trips Bliss, takes the kendo stick, and the way the crowd reacted to Bayley grabbing the kendo stick, Bliss just ran for cover, and I really feel that they're building this well, that when Bayley just snaps on Alexa, I mean, this feud has been built off of one kendo stick shot from last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's great.
I agree with you. I think the tease of Bayley using a weapon is wonderful, and really something you can only do with a character like hers, who's so innocent and pure.
Maybe she'll do color at the pay-per-view.
She should cause color. Like Alexa should do color, but she won't.
They plugged the street fight for Tuesday night, and then our main event, Bray Wyatt and Samoa Joe against Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. They went through a commercial break. First, Joe had a grip on Roman. Then Bray came in. He placed his hands around Roman to form a grip. Reigns broke free.
There's been big discussion about the WWE style as of late.
Oh.
It's just what they do. And you can argue that it doesn't bomb. In fact, it kind of works, you know? The crowd does react, in a way. Obviously, this wasn't a 5-star match, and it wasn't intended to be. But it was, it's a way to kind of, I guess, fill time until you get to the money-making pay-per-view, right?
Well, that's where you hit the nail on the head for one of the biggest problems, is that there's so much of that.
Mm-hmm.
What does this tag match mean? It means nothing. And that's what you have with all this programming that you put out. And I will give SmackDown credit. It's not been so much of late, because I think they've had a bit of a lull post WrestleMania. But before that, that was a really tight show. Those 2 hours flew by for me. I look forward to SmackDown most weeks. And on Raw, you have a lot of matches that are they're just there. Like the main event, a lot of weeks, there is nothing at stake. There is no progression. It is just your 18-minute main event.
For sure.
And that's what this was.
Yeah.
I don't blame the crowd for sitting on their hands for the first half of this, but they did pick up when Seth got tagged in, I felt. There was also a sign that said, "Roman thinks the earth is flat," facing the hard camera. Joe and Bray attacked Rollins on the turnbuckle, knocked them off, then he hit a double-cross body. Reigns returned to attack them. They double-teamed Joe, and then Reigns missed with a Superman punch and collided with Rollins after Joe sidestepped. Rollins gets upset. Bray pulls Reigns to the floor and allows Joe to capitalize by coming from behind, applying the coquina clutch, and the bell is rung, and Joe gets the clean submission victory on Seth Rollins to win the match.
Yep. I thought decent booking for a main event. Furthers the storyline of the main event. I saw Joe and Reigns interact here, and I think it just made me really want to see that match. I think those two could have an awesome series. But boy, 4 weeks, 5 weeks is a long time for a match that doesn't contain a whole lot of depth at the moment. You know, you pretty much spelled out the storyline for me in the first segment that this match was announced. A 5-way for a chance at Brock Lesnar. And I would say this episode, and from what it sounds like the next week's episode, doesn't seem like it has that much creativity to put into it in order to get to that, in order to keep me interested. I feel like I already know, and I feel like I can miss all this and just watch the pay-per-view.
Well, you probably could. Next week is our go-home show for Extreme Rules. I hope we have all 5 guys in the final segment last week staring at one another, and the song comes over the loudspeaker.
That could happen, yeah.
The Extreme Rules theme song. Then we got the best segment of life at the end. Kurt is in the back, watching as this finishes, when Finn Balor walks in to congratulate him on his main event, but says next week, don't leave me out of this. I want to take on one of them. So Kurt says, well, I can't grant you that. Instead of one superstar, you're gonna face 2 superstars. It's Finn Balor versus Samoa Joe versus Bray Wyatt. And I already screwed this up because I screwed up Angle's screw up where he called him Finn Balor.
Yes.
Finn Balor. Everyone noticed this.
I've also noticed the lack of him saying the initials WWE on this show.
WWE.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gave up on that one too. And he also announces Rollins versus Reigns for next week and ends by saying, damn, I'm a great GM.
That has to be an ad-lib.
Yeah,
this made me laugh really hard, that line. Yeah.
He was so awkward on this show.
Yeah, I know. We're going to get every possible combination, So, yeah. I would really, I guess everybody's taken up. There's no sense in complaining. Like, we know what what the issues are, right? Like, they have too much TV time to fill. And, this is what they have to do to squeeze out a main event.
Well, I mean, you have one more Raw until you do the 5-way. And then coming out of Extreme Rules, at least you do have a bunch of dates with Brock throughout June to build up to that singles match. And hopefully we have some more life in the main event scene. I think that's the best optimistic look you can have. But that was Raw. I feel like we kind of had a sliding scale from Saturday night when it came to the WWE.
Sliding scale, yeah. Yeah, I would say.
Was this better than Backlash tonight? I didn't think it was.
No, Backlash, I think, had better matches, had a better moment to end the show, or at least more interesting moment to end the show. I mean, no, it was not. Hey, what do you know about this this UFC summit?
Oh, this thing sounded like something I would have loved to have gone and just been a spectator for. Sounded like we had fights, we had fighters complaining about the Reebok deal. Like Cajun Johnson and Leslie Smith. Well, let's talk about the fight first. So Chris Cyborg approached Angela Magana, whose side job is just being a troll online. She made fun of Cyborg and her looks on Twitter. So Cyborg called her on this. And video of this emerged. Have you seen the video?
I have, yes.
And it's not a great shot because the camera misses the actual punch. There's someone right in front of the camera, but she decks her right in the face. And yeah, Angela Magana got a busted lip as a result of it. So that was one incident. And then at the Reebok, what they do is every year they bring down the fighters for this fighters summit, and they do all these different seminars. In the past, it's been about investing your money properly and all this different stuff. You go through workshops, blah, blah, blah. They've also got their new performance institute that they were showing off.
But this year, man, it felt like a forum for everybody to bitch and complain about what's been going on.
There's a lot of unhappiness in the UFC over the past year since the sale, and it kind of came to a head. And in the Reebok seminar, Cajun Johnson got up and he said he's lost 80% of his sponsorship money since this Reebok deal came into effect. And you had the 2 guys representing Reebok who were basically saying, well, the goal of this is to grow your brand. And Cajun just goes, man, don't give me that shit. It was great. And that's when the video ended. But apparently this went on for a while, and then Cajun was taken away. Later he tweeted that he had a good talk with all of it. And I know he was on the MMA Hour today, but I didn't hear his interview discussing it. But I mean, good for him. I'm glad some of these fighters are speaking up. None of them got any say with any of these deals being passed before. And, it's all these fighters are upset. All of them have got screwed. Well, I won't say all of them, but a lot of them have gotten screwed from a variety of different deals. The Reebok deal being a big one of them. But there's been very little action. I mean, these fighter unions have just been, like, nothing has been accomplished from them. And they're losing out. And this was kind of, I think there's a breaking point for a lot of these fighters now.
I think it's so awesome. Like I said, I love whenever there's chaos. And I love the fact that these fighters are basically like trying to start a mutiny at this point against the UFC. I mean, maybe not that far, but
I'm glad these videos were being shot and posted.
Jesus Christ, I love it. I just fucking love it. Could you ever imagine if WWE wrestlers felt this open and free to complain?
It's such a different world. Like, the WWE talent is under such a, man, they don't speak out of turn. It's rare. It's really rare. Like, it's news when someone just tweets something out of the norm. So, yeah, it's just completely different mentalities. And there was a time when, I mean, you would hear fighters complain privately, but now it's the floodgates have just erupted. And they are, it seems every week there's more fighters coming out that are just furious about stuff. And it's very frustrating if you're a fighter and you're seeing, you know, Cajun Johnson, one of the things he stated on Ariel's show today, he threw out the figure of $400,000 that Rory McDonald made for his fight on Friday against Paul Daly. So when you're hearing that, it's like, man, Bellator looks damn attractive if you are a fighter of note.
Yeah, you have to be Rory, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for the MMA update. Decided to squeeze that in last minute, and hopefully most of you didn't mind, but I was really curious about this.
So let's go to some feedback before we wrap up the show. Lawradio.proboards.com. First off is Jeremy, who writes, I always hear how hectic your guys' weeks are and just want to say thanks for what you guys do. Well, thank you, Jeremy. So just one point I want to make. Brock hasn't defended his title for 51 days. Naomi had to vacate the title because of the 30-day championship defense rule. Why the different rules? And do you guys think Brock being champion but not being a regular contributor to Raw hurts the show and or the title?
Hurts the show, yeah. I mean, saw evidence of it tonight, I would say.
It does, but let's also go prior to WrestleMania, where he was showing up all the time, and they had no ideas for this guy. He came, it was the same promo every week, and I was saying they were overusing him because they had no ideas.
Yes.
When he's not wrestling on TV, there's only so much you can do with this guy.
Yeah. But I mean, if Brock, I mean, that's more of a problem with creative, isn't it?
Yes.
Than it is with Brock.
I'm not denying that. And you know, to the defense of creative, they are somewhat tied. Their hands are tied because he's not just your average performer that you can book in all these different scenarios. I mean, he has a very direct path of what he's going to be doing, and it doesn't include wrestling ever on TV.
I'll say, like, it hurts the TV product, but I think they're doing it for the benefit of the pay-per-views and overall the benefit of the networks, which, you know, we could see ultimately. But the TV, I would say, is definitely tougher to get into without that champion being around, in my opinion. We got a Jesse from the 6 who says, last week you asked how can anybody who hates Roman be disappointed with his recent portrayal? Well, I hate Roman, and I hate his current portrayal. First, I respectfully disagree with the argument that because Roman is booed, that makes him a heel. Heels and babyfaces are roles within the construct of the show, and Roman is in a 1980s white meat babyface role. That he is rejected by the fans doesn't make him a heel, it makes him a failure. Second,
in what way, though, is he playing to the audience? In what way is he seeking approval? Like, I really feel they've made a drastic turn with Reigns since WrestleMania, where it's not a character that is trying to endear himself to the audience. I really don't have much of an issue with the current Roman Reigns at all.
Okay, well, to argue for Jesse's argument, I mean, they are positioning him like tonight in a babyface role, teaming with Seth, doing babyface comebacks, you know, having him for the most part face heels on the show.
Yeah, I don't know. I watch him and I hear him get a tremendous response every week, and I don't necessarily take that as rejection from the audience. When I see dead segments, I feel that is much more indicative of a rejection of a character. I think people just really get into responding to this guy, whether it's in a negative or positive reason. And I think it makes Roman more interesting.
He goes on, secondly, there is no subtlety nor substance to his character. He's just been carefully crafted to look cool. Vince's idea of a top babyface is Superman. Take the Braun ambulance beatdown and then watch the 1986 Saturday night's main event where King Kong Bundy murders Hulk Hogan. Same thing. Vince hasn't evolved since the 1980s. Last week, an injured Roman beat the hitherto undefeated Finn Balor, even though Balor looks to be the one getting the next title shot. Third, a full-on Roman heel turn allows him to be a top babyface later on. That's the whole point. Let the fans boo him and let him embrace it until he becomes cool again. Then we don't have to deal with another decade of let's go Roman sucks chants in every goddamn main event.
Well, I feel that you're almost going to get to that point, but I just feel it would be so... I feel almost it would be too drastic now if you suddenly turned Roman into this stereotypical heel role. Like, I feel like there's a certain disdain he has for the audience when he does speak. I mean, it's very subtle, but I think it's there. And I feel we always talk about subtlety not always being a major positive or a major WWE trait. And with Roman, I think they're kind of exercising that. And I prefer that as opposed to him just coming out and insulting the crowd for 5 minutes. I think that would wear thin pretty soon, once the shock value was gone, which I think would be pretty fleeting.
If the ultimate goal is still to have Brock versus Roman at WrestleMania, I mean, do you see them carrying on with this Roman Reigns character all the way till then? Or are we going to get some twists and turns with it? As in heel turn, babyface turn again before we get to Mania? Because you would assume that Roman's going to take the babyface role in that Mania main event.
I don't know if he necessarily will. I don't know if he will. They may go into that, and it's the audience is going to side with Brock, just like the Undertaker this year. I mean, they positioned him with the Undertaker. I mean, they're not stupid. They didn't believe that this is going to be a pro Roman crowd. I mean, and they went in that direction anyway. So that very well could be as things turn out. And I mean, when you're booking and looking so far ahead, very hard to kind of forecast where this character is going to turn over the next year. But I don't look at Roman as any kind of a detriment on Raw at the moment. I find him to be one of the strong points on a show that desperately needs people that are going to generate a reaction from the audience, because these shows are so long, and Roman consistently gets a strong reaction, and you can analyze what the substance is, but it's noise. And it, to me, is a more lively atmosphere when Roman is part of a match than not. We go to Mark from Vaughn. How would you map out the top of the card for SummerSlam? Braun has unfinished business with Roman, but if Balor gets the July title shot, Braun probably has to get SummerSlam. I like Lesnar and Braun. That would be my choice for SummerSlam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that the only, what's after Extreme Rules?
We've got Raw? Extreme Rules and Money in the Bank, and then Raw has Great Balls of Fire in July, and I'm sure there's a SmackDown pay-per-view in July as well that I just can't keep track of all these. Yeah. Maybe a Battleground is in there or something like that. But what would be your SmackDown title program, Way?
Ooh.
I feel Jinder's going to be holding the title through SummerSlam.
I think so too. Jinder and your baby faces being, I think you can do Jinder AJ. That seems relatively strong. Who are your other top baby faces on SmackDown? Nakamura's coming up, but I don't think he's ready for a title shot.
I can't believe we're talking about these options as possible for SummerSlam, and they are.
Jinder versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Yeah.
None of these matches excite me like they seem to for you, Way.
I think Jinder AJ could be interesting. Again, I mean, okay, not after what we saw last week. But the prospect of them pushing Jinder Mahal as a top heel as a face of the company is one that actually excites me. Not from an in-ring perspective, but just from, I guess from what it means, culturally, for what it means from a business perspective, it interests me. How are they going to, we get to see live how they want to expand to another, very coveted demographic.
Here's the other thing as well that's a direct result of this decision they're making. Jinder is now going to be going on the road Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then TV on Tuesday. And for those house shows, he's going to be doing 15 to 18 minutes with some of the best guys in the world. Mm-hmm. There is no way that guy can not improve at least moderately over the next number of months during this run by doing that kind of schedule with those guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I look forward to seeing the level that he'll be at come SummerSlam. But I think you're absolutely right. The combination of working with all these top guys, plus the pressure that he's probably putting him on himself right now, knowing that, Vince sees this much in him, I'm sure is motivating him to, be a better in-ring performer, be better all around. Whether or not he can achieve it, well, let's assess. But I think it's an interesting experiment. We go to Doug in Chicago, who says, we finally got the Drifter in action. The teases of Samson have been met with cheers, but he is always able to draw some great heat from the crowd once he starts singing. Am I the only one who thinks Rollins and Samson look like brothers? How do you see him being utilized on Raw going forward?
Rollins and Samson? Yeah, you can kind of see that. I mean, they don't have the most distinct looks to begin with, but yeah, I can see the relation there.
How do I see him being utilized? I think they'll try to push him as a serious act, they typically do the comedy thing, but giving the guy like a rough edge in the ring to try to save him from being just a comedy act. And I can see them, pushing that for several weeks. I don't ever see good long-term potential for gimmicks like that, as hard as you might push them as actual threats. Look at Tyler Breeze, look at Fandango. So my answer would be Tyler Breeze and Fandango for Elias Sampson maybe 6 months from now.
Maybe the Drifter will do a concert at SummerSlam this year at the Barclays Center.
Why doesn't he do the theme song?
Oh, an acoustic version.
Sure.
Alexander from Portland. Do you see Gargano and Ciampa being placed into the cruiserweight division? Do you think they're more likely to get over not being in the division? The answer is yes. To the last question about being more over outside the cruiserweight division. And I don't see them going into the cruiserweight division anytime soon. I see them sticking around in NXT, and I think that's probably the takeover match for SummerSlam weekend.
Yeah, I see them doing a singles program, obviously, in NXT and kind of milking that. But once they get called up on the main roster, can you see these two as single stars? Because they are quite undersized, especially Gargano.
To me, I look at Johnny Gargano, and when I see like baby faces that just can't miss, I feel he's one of them. And I just see if that guy floundered on the main roster, it would not be on that guy. But I thought similar with Sami Zayn, and they always find ways to amaze me.
Who knows what'll happen to these two when Vince gets his hands on them, right? And I don't see it for either of these two being pushed as major stars in the singles division on Raw or SmackDown. I just don't. I think the crowd will react to them like they are, but I don't see Vince seeing the same. We go to Armbar, who says, I've been watching pro wrestling forever, but I can't ever remember an explanation why there are kendo sticks underneath the ring. I understand ladders and garbage cans, but why kendo sticks? Tonight,
case of a riot breaking out.
Well, people like to practice kendo, prior to the shows. I'm sure the ring crew, they do kendo on occasion just to relax.
Hey, I've called kendo. It's a very, very difficult art to master and learn. Way hooked me up with an expert in kendo in the city, actually, years ago.
My friend Ivan's big into kendo.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to Chris from Melbourne. I don't normally get to watch Raw live. Okay. All in all, a good thumbs in the middle show. Not good enough to make me watch live every week, and not bad enough to make me quit altogether. You're just stuck. Question. Have either of you listened to the closing moments of Backlash's main event in Punjab? I decided to look it up. Oh, yes. Way saw this earlier. The commentators sounded like they were over the moon. I highly recommend that you go watch it. I will go watch this. You know what? We're going to end the show with that clip. Yeah. Yes, perfect. That's how we'll end the show.
Have you ever watched any WWE programming in a foreign language? Because I decided to today. As you know, like I'm trying to learn Japanese, so they say you should immerse yourself in the language, and I decided to, on the network, while watching the pay-per-view, switch to Sho Funaki, and I forget the other commentator's name, but I watched Japanese.
Meng something.
That's the Japanese one or the Chinese one?
Oh, jeez.
How dare you?
You're putting me in a corner. I thought Meng was the Japanese announcer, but I could be wrong.
Whatever, I mistaken too. Anyway, but it's an interesting experiment, and I encourage everybody to try it once in a while. Did it make the show better or worse? I can't really say. It was just kind of there. My turn?
Yeah, let's do one more.
Nick in the Bronx, Raw floated, sometimes convincing there could be some development in storyline and character, yet never really executing. Logic would tell you that Apollo attacked Enzo and would be a positive step forward in shaping a heel character, but it doesn't seem to be coming. Neville is the king of the cruiserweights. He is great at portraying an unkept flying savage, but when he sits down at ringside to watch an opponent, does he sit on a throne? No. He sits on an office chair, and the visual of it is worth a lapse in judgment.
I don't know what he's talking about.
He wants he wants a throne for Neville to sit on when he's on commentary or ringside, sitting ringside.
That'd actually be awesome if they carried him to the ring, but all the guys who carry him, like Savage used to come out to, it's all like jacked up dudes who've got to carry this little cruiserweight, and he's above them all.
That would be awesome. It would give the perception that this guy is better than all these guys who are maybe more physically tougher, but not as smart or as, athletic or as blank, Yeah, I think that would be great. To have, not even doing that specifically, but to have him lead some muscle, you know what I mean? Have a guy behind him that's his muscle. I guess Diesel and Shawn is essentially it. But then I think Vince will fall in love with whoever the muscle is and just push the muscle instead of Neville. My assumption. Let me finish Nick in the Bronx. Also, I've been listening for a few years and I've never thought to contribute feedback. The two of you are great companions to have while one gets by and is trying to figure out their life.
Whoa.
Well, thank you.
Figure out your life.
He also recommends the book The Wrestler's Cruel Study by Stephen Dobbins, a long, silly piece of literature surrounding the world of wrestling. It's a funny read and is an immense, detailed world of 70s, early 80s wrestling in New York City and elsewhere. Well, thanks, Nick. I mean, we're trying to figure out our lives too, so thank you for joining us while you figure yours out.
We're all navigating.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, do you think they'll bring back King of the Ring this year?
I mean, I don't discount it, but I'm not. I mean, how many years have they brought it back and it's meant so little?
It's meant nothing, but you know what? Like, I feel like now is a better time than ever, especially with your split brands, especially because you have so many pay-per-views, B shows. I would love to see them bring back King of the Ring. And I've always wanted, and this is if Neville still has the championship, but with Neville doing the King gimmick, I feel like he, again, should be somebody who could win something like that.
Well, he went to the finals, I think, of the last one they did, and that was when they went with King Barrett instead.
Right. But I mean,
wonders for him.
To really solidify the King Neville gimmick, and also really to show that your cruiserweights aren't all below, the main roster, I feel like that would be great for him, but I don't know. I don't know if they'll do that.
All right. Well, we've had a marathon-length show here, so I want to thank you all if you have made it to the end of this show. And if you want to hear more of us, if you're still contemplating what am I here on this earth to do, and you can't answer that question and need something to listen to, Review of SmackDown will be coming back on Wednesday, where Wai and I will chat about the Punjabi celebration in Toledo.
And we will have video of that particular review. Yes.
I can't go another show, Wai, without seeing your lovely face.
Okay.
All right. It's gotten awkward, so we're going to move on. Once again, folks, you can catch our big interview with Ed Nordholm, president of Impact Wrestling, Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time at youtube.com/live audio wrestling. We've also got the Law up from Sunday night running through Backlash with Dave Meltzer on the show, and new edition of British Audio Wrestling just went up on Monday with Benno and Martin chatting about not just the UK special on Friday, but also the match everyone's raving about between Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne. They've also got female star Chris Wolfe on the show, as she is in the UK at the moment, and very popular female wrestler, as I've heard from people responding since the show has been posted. So you can check that great show that is up now, all available at liveaudiowrestling.com. And is there anything else, Way?
That's it. See you guys Wednesday.
Good night.
चैंपियन बन गए हैं नंबर वन इंडिया नंबर वन बन गए हैं नंबर वन WWE चैंपियन इंडिया से पंजाब से इंडिया नंबर वन जिंदाबाद